Hello, everybody. This is Hondo Carpenter, your Las Vegas Raiders beat writer on SI, and the host of the Las Vegas Raiders Insider podcast, joined as I have been for nearly 2 decades, each and every week talking ball with one of my dear friends. He is a highly successful journalist and a well renowned attorney in the Atlanta Buckhead area. He is the one and only, the great Jonathan Shop, or as Jim Rome calls him, Johnny from East Lansing. Johnny, I love the glasses. You just got the intellectual look. And for what people who don't know, you're an avid rock and roller. You love the Red Hot Chili Peppers. I think that's your favorite band in the whole. What? Oh, who is it?
No, I would say Pearl Jam and Led Zeppelin.
Oh, Pearl. Okay, okay.
Yes.
Forgive me.
That's all right.
Do you not like the Red Hot Chili Peppers?
That's a tricky question. Yes, I like them. I give them a lot of respect, but the last half or third of their career is a little more difficult. They have a really long history. Obviously, a lot of Raider fans know about it with their Southern California roots. There's been a lot of ebbs and flows. The best thing I can say about them is doesn't matter what their age, they love what they do and they still do it and they're still working. So you got to give them something. They got a whole lot of different stuff mixed in. So there's a lot of good stuff, but they've had a very long career.
All right. Well, I owe you an apology because I always thought that Red Hot Chili Peppers, but now that you mentioned Pearl Jam, I actually remember us talking about that more than I'm not into that genre. I love rock and roll, but I like classic rock. I'm not into that stuff. All right. Good for you. So, Johnny, a lot of observations from Pete Carroll. I want to offer a couple of them. I want to go back to Mark Davis. He basically confirmed our reporting. He said we had another guy. That guy pivoted to, that guy went to another job. So we pivoted to Pete. A story that almost 4 weeks ago, 3 or 4 weeks ago, we reported Pete was an absolute viable candidate. But if they got him, it was going to be because a couple of other options were not available. Mark confirmed that. Mark said there wasn't an offer. We agreed. We said that we had heard around the NFL was going to be somewhere around 15 mil a year for 6 years guaranteed. 90 is what people thought it was going to take to get him. We said that the Raiders told us if we lose him, it will not be because of money, and they did not. Had nothing to do with money. So I thought it was a great press conference. I thought it was confirmed a lot of our reporting, which was fantastic. I just thought it was a very solid day. But I know you, and this is what I love about your mind. You are a highly trained and extremely successful attorney. And there will be things that you and I will sit next to each other and you hear that I never even heard because you have just the way you've been trained. And this is why I love having you on this show. What stood out to you from Pete Carroll?
Well, the first thing that stood out was I like that Mark Davis stuck a ding in there towards the NFL and said, hey, I hired John Gruden with a 10-year contract, kind of reframing. It was going to take this much time. Okay. So we had a guy and he, got cut off. That was one thing. A couple of things stood out to me watching the Pete Carroll press conference. If you want to be a great team, you've got to be a great teammate. Pete Carroll setting the standard right away. There's not going to be a tolerance for bad teammates doing bad things that hurt the team. It's not a knock on who was here in the past, but it's like, hey, I'm coming out right at the start and putting that out there. And competition. Both the Whiz Kid, Spytek, and Carroll practically agreeing competition, setting the standard that competition will be a constant presence in the Raiders. If you don't want to compete, you're in the wrong place. That is a different situation, perhaps. And for some of the people that got boot last year or took off or quit the team practically, they wouldn't be a fit with Pete Carroll. So there's an identity already that's being formed when Pete Carroll comes into a situation with his experience, with his a little bit different approach, and with the energy and the juice after taking that year off, basically, the bye year, if you will. That stood out to me. But also what stood out to me is if we're not having fun, I'm screwing it up. So Carroll is also setting an expectation that the Raiders organization is going to be one with positive forward momentum and fun. It's not going to be a place where players are dreading going to work and just getting hammered with do your job, and monotonous criticism to the point where it makes them lose some luster for coming out to play. It also stood out to me that he and Spytek agreed everybody in the organization has to get on board for the Raiders to move forward. You saw last year what happens if not everybody is necessarily on board in different ways. This is a new day. So a good bit stood out. I think marriage or cooperation between the general manager and the coach, it looks like they didn't just put these two things together and see how they fit. It looks like, hey, we're thinking about doing this. We're thinking about doing this. Let's have these guys meet and see how they can kind of mesh. I do think this is going to be a popular hire that's going to grow in popularity over the offseason because Pete Carroll's success on the West Coast is deep, and he probably is underrated overall with the so-called coastal media bias towards the eastern part of the country. That doesn't really matter in Raider Nation. I think there's going to be a lot of energy behind the Pete Carroll hire. And of course, when we get to that new calendar year in March, it's going to be exciting to see what kind of players want to be a part of this new Raider scheme.
I'm not going to use their name. You'll know who I'm talking about, but there was a very famous college football coach. And a guy could be a 2-star or 3-star recruit. And the moment he offered them and they committed to his school, they instantly would fly up to be a 4 or 5-star. And I remember asking him about it one time at lunch. And I just said, do you not find that funny? He goes, no, it's not funny. If he's good enough to come here, he is a 4 or 5-star. And then he winked at me. And the point was, I've done it. I've won. So the guys that I go after should get the higher stars because I've proven to be one of the best evaluators of talent in America. Pete Carroll is going to get that respect. He's going to get the benefit of a doubt where a Josh McDaniels didn't, where an Antonio Pierce didn't. He brings instant credibility to all of it. He brings instant credibility to all of it. And he should. And you can call it bias. But you know what? Let's be very blunt and honest. If you want to talk technology and you have an opinion in Elon Musk, people are probably going to listen to Elon Musk. If you want to have an opinion on building a media company, people are probably going to listen to Joe Rogan before they listen to their brother-in-law who sells car insurance. I mean, it's just the reality, and he's earned it.
Yeah, the thing is that Pete Carroll has won for a long time over a lot of levels when you talk about the college and pro level, and really a yard or two away from a 2-time Super Bowl winning coach. I actually like the idea of a year break. It lets a coach and a guy that was doing more than coaching there for a long time in Seattle kind of reset the deck, refresh, and look at a few things. I don't think that you're necessarily going to see – this is not Pete Carroll showing up for an encore and putting in 50% of the effort. That's not the kind of guy this is. And that's what gets exciting to me. There's been a lot of tough things that have happened to the Raiders, to their Raiders fans, to the organization since they've gotten to Las Vegas. A lot of them off the field that have been a strain. This is also a way, I think, of looking at it and putting together a little bit of a healing opportunity and getting behind a guy that's a little more rah-rah. That's kind of what they need. And when they put together a staff, and he talked about guys I've worked with, guys I never have, and other guys as well, that's going to give them an opportunity to see a couple of different things from different angles than they probably heard in the last couple of years. So the future is much brighter. And it is interesting that this is kind of a totally fresh and clean start. And all eyes are going to be on what they do immediately in the offseason and what they do with the quarterback position. I remind people of what happened in Seattle with Pete Carroll. I don't think you can underestimate that experience that he had. And I don't think you can underestimate that he is going to be willing, and Spytek, they will be willing to search, seek, and find a quarterback. It may not be the first guy. It may be the first guy. It may be the fourth guy. They're going to go through and find out what they can do, what will put them in a position to succeed. Because the one thing that they talked about, this did stand out to me. I should have said it right off the bat. Carroll said, hey, quarterback is the toughest position to play in pro sports. We're going to do everything we can to make their job as easy as they can. So we're talking about running the ball, defense, kicking it when we want to kick it. With that frame of reference in mind, I think it becomes a more appealing place for a quarterback to play when they say, listen, we're going to do all this stuff around making your job easier. Because as Carroll knows, and as we've seen with the Commanders this year, the best example maybe in modern time, you put that quarterback in a position to succeed and you've got a guy that's got an edge, all of a sudden you can go from really bad to really good in a really quick hurry.
Totally agree with you. And I want to talk about that because you and I have bemoaned the way the Raiders have handled quarterback. So let me go back and explain what I mean. You and I have both said, and I totally agree, until you know you have the guy, you should be drafting or adding new quarterbacks every year. Then when you know you have the guy, you keep drafting, hoping you find a second guy to back him up because it's a two quarterback system. Neither one of us is against Aiden O'Connell. But you and I both realize we haven't seen enough to say he is a QB1. We haven't seen enough to say he wasn't because the Getsy experiment was a complete and utter failure. And that was on the team. That was not on Aiden. But if I'm Pete, yep, I'm going to go get a veteran and I'm going to draft someone and let all three of them compete. And you know what? We're going to find out real quick what Aiden O'Connell has because he's going to have a rookie in the mix. He's going to have a veteran in the mix. And everybody's starting at the same flat ground. I don't think, I laugh because people say, well, Hondo's an O'Connell apologist. No, Hondo is an O'Connell hater. No, you need a franchise quarterback until you have one. You keep looking guy. That's the only thing I am a quarterback position apologist. I'm not an apologist. I mean, I like Aiden, but the reality is he's gotten a lot of opportunity and you can't blame him for the Getsy junk. I mean, he gets his first opportunity as a rookie coach with a guy with no OC experience, Bo Hardegree. Then he comes in, he gets Scott Turner, where he did improve greatly. But I mean, the reality is the Raiders need a quarterback, and it's like all 53 positions. Unless you are an elite guy like a Max Crosby, unless you are an elite guy like a Robert Spillane, Christian Wilkins, Daniel Carlson, AJ Cole, unless you are an elite guy, nobody's position is safe and shouldn't be.
No, that's the whole point of the competition. And you're right. What I've always believed is that competition reveals the truth. So it's a fresh blank slate. 3, 4, 5 quarterbacks are going to be in camp. Who knows? Aiden O'Connell's got a fresh slate. And there's going to be competition, ideally with a rookie or two and with a veteran. And it's not that it's so much a stopgap, but once you get into that 2025, Pete Carroll and Spytek's first interest is going to be, what can we do to win games this year? And beyond that, what does the future look like? So competition is going to reveal the truth. I think it's really going to be a different approach. And I know Carroll keeps talking about we do things different, we practice different. There's going to be some intrigue from guys that are on the Raiders, guys that want to stick on the Raiders, and other guys around the league like, hey, maybe I want to go get in that mix. Well, there's some advantages to playing quarterback in Las Vegas. Number one is you're going to be inside half the year. That's not so bad. You could also look at some disadvantages in that you look at the division you're in. It's not easy. Now, there's not really an easy division in the NFL. Sometimes there's a division that's, hey, it's pretty weak. Got a couple weak teams, but I don't think that's that big of a deal. There's a lot of appealing things, and what you want is to attract guys that want to compete. And I think Aiden O'Connell is going to embrace that competition. It's time to find out where do I
want it.
Yeah, he wants it. And it may prove to be fantastic for him, or it may not. I think he's done a great job at really creating a pro career because most of the guys that are drafted at the quarterback position are probably gone by now. Most of the guys that played in his class, his college class, they're long gone as well. He has carved away and done enough to grind out a pro career. Now he gets a fresh start too, but he's going to embrace the fact that, hey, this is a clean competition. He don't even know who's coming in yet. It's going to be interesting because we know there's limitations as far as free agent quarterbacks. We also know that there's obviously a big week at the Senior Bowl. There's some dart stock rising, if you will, and there's going to be some other guys that pop out. I'm interested to see what the Raiders do and who they've got down there and what kind of scouting they're able to do at the Senior Bowl, because it's on relatively such short notice. But sure enough, they've got to have people down there taking a look.
All right. I want to talk to you about the Cowboys, because I'm not a Cowboy fan, but anyone who is honest, it is an iconic franchise that Jerry Jones, I told you I had an executive at the owners' meetings tell me it's kind of sad what's going on with the Cowboys. It's almost like what happened with Al Davis those last few years that he ran the Raiders. And you're seeing it with Jerry. They let Mike McCarthy go, which he could have went to a couple different places. He was smart and says, no, none of these are good jobs. I'll wait till the next cycle. I know who I am. Same with Cliff Kingsbury, showed a lot of wisdom. And there were some people that wanted to go there, Dion, but a lot of people, they didn't want that Dallas job. And the biggest hindrance is Jerry Jones. Let's talk. Are you, it's bad for the NFL, and I hate to see it, but the Cowboys are really a circular firing squad until, and I think Stephen Jones would be good, but until they do something different, I think that the weight or the anchor around their neck is Jerry Jones. I love the man. I think he has always been great to me. I think he's been phenomenal for the NFL. But I think he has run his course. Your thoughts?
When you look at when he came in and really disrupted the NFL and started to say, hey, I don't want a bigger piece of the pie. I want to grow the pie that is the NFL. You know, he rubbed some folks the wrong way. But if you look at the value of the franchises when he came into where they are now, it's ridiculous. And he's going to get a lot of credit, and his legacy is going to be that by and large. The second part of his legacy may be really screwing up what could have been a super dynasty, of course, with the Jimmy Johnson thing. So now you're later on. He says, look, I know the time here is limited, but I'm the guy. It's my team. There's no reason to hire a GM. I'm calling all the shots here. It is a concern. Cowboy fans, they are concerned now that they're going to be stuck in a struggle. They have seen what looked like, hey, we're on the way up. That has quickly changed, and now you've got the arch rival, the number one rival of the Cowboys, the Washington football franchise, back on the way up and fast. Now you're getting into a little panic mode. It is something, because nobody pumps the Cowboys as America's team more than Jerry. Well, they may be the biggest franchise. I don't know that they're that much bigger. I think he's blown that up over the years. There was a good stretch where the Steelers were kind of America's team. But let's look at the contrast here. What if the Cowboys had just hired Pete Carroll and John Spytek? Now, I mentioned that to Raider fans because if anybody out there's like, I don't really like who we got, or I don't know how to judge it, flip the script. If the Cowboys had Carroll and Spytek, you would see probably a whole lot of love from national media, just blowing up how great this was for the Cowboys because they got a guy for right now to lay the foundation, to set the course, and they got another guy to steer the ship and the general manager. They'd be going crazy. So I'd like to keep that in mind. The other thing I would keep in mind relative to the Cowboys immediately is what do they do with Micah Parsons? And I don't know that the Raiders come into play in that area at all, but there is a chance that some weird stuff may begin happening with the Cowboys. And some of that may be in desperation. And some of that, if not all of it, is going to be driven by Jerry Jones. So when you take a look at who did not want to be the head coach of the Cowboys and who they were end up being stuck with, there are reasons. And like you said, they start right at the top with Jerry Jones. I actually don't think that he will never give up complete operational control of the Cowboys. I think there will come a point in time where he may say, you know what? This guy's driving the train right now. I think that's possible. History tells us it's not going to happen, but it seems to me like it may be possible. If not, these diminishing returns, they're going to start adding up more and more and more. And we're going to look back at the window that the Cowboys kind of had during the Prescott era and say, oh, they missed it completely.
I'm going to tell you this. Someone who you and I both know, who knows Jerry really, really well, told me every time they fail, he just makes it even more of a vendetta. I'm going to prove to them I can do it. It's an Al Davis trait, and it's what made them great in their prime.
Yeah, and it's
And
what does problems. We see it for businesses, we see it for franchises, like digging your heels in more and more. No. So on the flip side, we understand Tom Brady's philosophy. It's trying to consistently do things in the best interest of the team or the best interest of winning. They did that so well in New England, and he's done it pretty well out of New England as well. How much of a contrast these two franchises? Let's start right here. 2025 with the new coaches. Where does the Cowboys franchise go? How many wins do they stack in the middle and late 20s? How many do the Raiders stack in the middle and late 20s? If I'm buying stock right now, I'm probably buying it in the Raiders because of the difference from the top, from the philosophical operation of a Davis, Brady, and company versus Jerry Jones. These returns in Dallas appear to be diminishing fast. My eye is on Micah Parsons. What do they do with him, if anything, this offseason?
All right. You and I both know the NFL is king, and the ratings prove it. Numbers don't lie. And they come in now, and the ratings were 44 and 55 million among the top 10 TV shows in America. John, I've said it all along. The only thing that can kill the NFL is the NFL.
Yeah. It's really something. You know, you're watching the game, and especially the second game, and it's entertaining as could be. And my dad says, "Hey, this is a pretty good TV show." And I reminded him, it's not only a pretty good TV show, it's probably going to be the second most watched TV show in the country all year. We don't usually think of it that way. We're on a football track here. If you're watching this thing, you're football crazy, which is great because it's the best game that there is. We love it. We 365 talk about, there's so much never ending to learn. It blows your mind when you think about how big an event this became, because we have been alive long enough to know when it was a great game, but not that way. Even before Jerry Jones came into the NFL and shortly after he came into the NFL, this landscape of sport and entertainment and pop culture was not like this in America. When I was young, when many folks out there were young, the Oscars was the biggest TV show of the year. It wasn't even close. Now it's obviously not even close at all. With football being king, we're going to see that top 20 TV shows in 2025 in a long time from now, nearly 11 months. And when it comes out, these two games this weekend, which were very entertaining, they're going to be right near the very, very top. It is incredible. The only thing that can destroy it is the NFL, like you say. And to tease for next week's discussion, some of us think the only team that can beat the Chiefs in this Super Bowl are the actual Chiefs.
Oh, great thing. John, I'm headed up to NOLA tomorrow for the Super Bowl. So when we talk next week, be the day before the Super Bowl. I can't wait to talk to you. John, tell everybody where they can find you on social media, will you?
At JP Spartan.
Check them out, Johnny Guitars.